right, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about why I quit smoking marijuana. And before I do, I want to make a disclaimer that I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not a professional. I'm not for or against marijuana. I'm literally just here to tell my story with it and why I decided that it wasn't for me anymore. First time I smoked marijuana was in high school, right after the SATs. And then I smoked a couple more times until the end of the year, and then I went to college, and that's when I really started to do heavy use with. My roommate had it, all my friends had it. It was in Southern California, and so it was just like free for all. In 2015, I moved to Austin. It started with me kind of just smoking with friends. Sometimes, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I would buy some from those friends and bring it home. And then when I started using it by myself, I started to become aware that it was a problem. So why did I decide to stop? Like, when was the moment that I realized, like, oh, I need to quit doing this? There were several times where I would smoke, get high, and then just sort of feel bad about myself and feel like I didn't really have control over my decision to smoke, and felt like my life wasn't really going anywhere. I felt like all the things that I wanted to work on personally, and they were stagnant. But it finally it all peaked in 2019. I realized that I can keep rationalizing why this isn't a problem. Well, this doesn't, at least on the surface level, it doesn't look like it's bringing me that much harm, smoking it in my bedroom and writing poetry for a couple of hours and then watching some funny video, right? And so on the surface level, it's like, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that for me is that I was chasing a feeling of peace and of adventure and creativity, and I wasn't able to give myself that. So for me at the time, it was just like, can I stop? If I can, then why haven't I? Is it because I don't want to? And if I don't want to, then why don't I want to? Because clearly there's reasons why this isn't working for me, and reasons why I do want to stop. So if this truly isn't something that I am addicted to, then why don't I stop? So it was kind of just like, I'm just going to stop doing it and see what happens. Some of my fears before I quit were like, well, how am I going to stay away from it? Right? Everybody in my life has marijuana. Like, all of my friends, my ex-girlfriend had it, her friends had it. Everywhere I went to a concert or a event, there was somebody eventually would pass me a joint or a blunt or something, and it's like, I was afraid that I was going to be very limited. And what I was surprised to find is that it's not that everybody here smokes. It's actually that because I smoke, I have surrounded myself more with people who do. The biggest challenge was being around friends, and then all of a sudden somebody was like, hey, I brought a blunt. Do you guys want to smoke it? Being in that situation of just, instead of saying, no, I'm good, just being like, sure. Right? That's how easy it is once you're in that situation. And still saying no, that was the biggest challenge. And for a while, I just avoided those situations. So I definitely had to sort of learn to trust myself around it. And also, something that helped me was, I'm not going to start under the illusion and under the rule that you can never touch this again. My belief is that that's just as harmful as engaging in it, right? It's like, you don't have control either way. It's like, how healed are you really if that's the situation that you're in, where you're like, if you're in a car crash and you're just like, well, I'm never driving again. It's like, all right, well, you're never going to be in a car crash again, but is that, you know what I mean? I guess one of the main lessons that I learned was that I wasn't quitting the substance. I was quitting the lifestyle. And had I not changed my lifestyle, I probably wouldn't have been successful. What I decided to sort of pair not smoking anymore with was, all right, well, I'm gonna start doing all the things that I was telling myself marijuana was preventing me from doing, right? Because otherwise, if I stop smoking and I still am not doing any of the things I wanted to do, then was marijuana really the problem, or was that just my excuse? And so what that looked like was accepting that I wasn't happy in my job, accepting that this was my way of avoiding certain emotions, right? I would go on dates and then the date wouldn't go great. And I would text the girl and then she would reply, I'm not interested. And then I would feel something, but instead of actually allowing it to come up, I would just smoke a joint and watch a video or listen to music or write poetry. And all of a sudden, right, it's like I'm so fucking up here with the high that I've forgotten about the emotional rejection. And then I've been learning about all of this, healing yourself and growth and trauma and all this stuff for a couple years now. But I'm not actually doing that work. And I think it was the month after I quit smoking marijuana that I decided to do ketamine infusions. My point here is that there was a reason at the time for why I was smoking marijuana, right? I guess there was the surface, like the avoidance, the denial level of it. And then there's below that, it's like, oh, I'm doing it because it's painful not to. And then a layer below that, why is there pain? Investigating that question was a huge part of it for me. So I think the reason that I have been unsuccessful in the past is because I didn't pair it with anything. And then one of the things that I learned and was kind of surprised by that I hadn't thought of was the excuse that everybody gives themselves. It's like, oh, well, it helps me to be more relaxed around my family, or it helps me not get so angry, or it helps me, insert your reason. And then the next step for me was, okay, yeah, cool, man. Cool that it helps you to do all these things, but when are you gonna sort of be able to provide all of that for yourself? Once I asked myself that question, it was kind of like, it got to a point where I couldn't enjoy a movie sober. I couldn't enjoy a walk if I wasn't high. Everything was better if I was on some kind of substance, and marijuana just happened to be my choice. I kind of had to relearn how to do all of these things without a substance there. It took a while. I'm not going to say it was just like immediate, but now 2 years later, it's like, it just feels better to go about my life just as me, and not somebody that has to be in a different state of mind, right? The changes that I noticed and in the last 2 years, again, enjoying the things that I do just for the sake of the thing and not because it's fun to do it on an altered state of consciousness. I went much deeper in healing and sort of inspecting my wounds and my trauma. And then I would say the biggest change has been my relationship to my emotions. If I go on a date and I feel that rejection come up, I'll stop, put my phone down, put my book down, put whatever I'm doing down. And generally, I'll start to cry, or I'll feel an urge to journal about whatever I'm feeling. And 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, that thing which then would have propelled me to get high and go back on a dating app and just find a way to like put a fucking band-aid over it, just kind of goes away. And then I kind of move on, but it doesn't get stuck there. And so I guess one final takeaway, the moment I realized and really accepted that I was doing this to escape was the moment that it no longer helped me escape.